Cynthia was still recovering from the complex surgery she had just undergone, with the effects of the anesthesia still making her groggy. She was persistently asking for her husband, but everyone around her seemed to be hiding something. When he finally entered the room, Cynthia discovered a shocking truth. Hello, my friends. I am Linda, and this is Linda's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. Cynthia was a woman full of life and energy. Every day she would wake up before the sun rose to run in the city park. It was her sacred routine, her moment of connection with herself and with nature, and a way to start the day on a healthy note. However, that autumn morning, something was different. Cynthia woke up late. The alarm clock hadn't gone off at the usual time. She looked at the clock and panicked. She couldn't miss her morning run. It was what kept her balanced to face the stress of her job as a lawyer in a large firm. Without thinking twice, she put on her running outfit, grabbed her small bag with essential items, and rushed out of the house. The park was almost empty at that hour. The trees swayed gently with the fresh morning breeze, and dew still covered the grass. Cynthia took a deep breath, feeling the fresh air fill her lungs. She started her run, determined to maintain her usual pace despite the delay. While running, Cynthia began to feel a slight dizziness. She ignored the sensation, thinking it was just fatigue. After all, she hadn't eaten anything before leaving. But as she progressed along the park trail, the dizziness intensified. Her vision started to blur, and her legs began to weaken. Something is wrong, she thought, trying to stay on her feet. But it was too late. Before she could ask for help, Cynthia felt the world spin around her and everything went dark. Arthur, a man who was taking his morning walk in the park. He was tall, with broad shoulders, and short-cut dark hair. His always alert brown eyes observed the nature around him. He loved to start the day with a good walk to clear his mind before work. As he walked along the more isolated trail in the park, Arthur spotted something unusual. A woman was lying on the ground, motionless. His heart raced, and he ran towards her. As he approached, he saw that it was a young woman. He quickly checked her vital signs and realized that she was breathing but unconscious. Arthur looked around, searching for someone who might be able to help, but the park was deserted at that hour. Acting on instinct, Arthur began to search through the small bag the woman was carrying, looking for any identification or medical information. It was then that he found something that made his heart leap: an emergency insulin injection. Diabetic, he murmured to himself, immediately recalling his mother, who also suffered from the disease. Without hesitation, Arthur prepared the injection and administered it to the unconscious woman. While waiting for the insulin to take effect, Arthur called emergency services. He explained the situation calmly and precisely. A few minutes later, the ambulance arrived. The paramedics praised Arthur's quick action, saying that his intervention had probably saved the woman's life. As they were about to load her into the ambulance, Cynthia began to regain consciousness. Her eyes opened slowly, and the first thing she saw was Arthur's face. Despite her still blurry vision, she noticed his gentle and concerned brown eyes. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. Before she could do anything else, she felt herself being moved into the ambulance and lost consciousness again. Arthur watched the ambulance drive away, a mix of worry and relief in his chest. He wanted to go with her, to know if she would be okay, but the paramedics explained that only family members could accompany her. With a sigh, he returned home, hoping that the woman he had saved would make a full recovery. At the hospital, Cynthia woke up hours later, confused and disoriented. A kind nurse explained what had happened, how she had been found unconscious in the park and saved by a stranger. "A man in the park saved your life," said the nurse with a smile. "He recognized the signs of hypoglycemia and used your emergency insulin. Unfortunately, we don't know his name." Cynthia was in shock. She vaguely recalled a face, brown eyes full of concern. She felt a wave of gratitude and, at the same time, frustration for not being able to thank her saviour. In the days that followed, after being discharged from the hospital, Cynthia couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious man who had saved her life. Determined to find him and express her gratitude, she returned to the park at the same time, day after day. The park seemed different now. Every face that passed by her was scrutinized, with the hope of recognizing those brown eyes that had been her last memory before passing out. On the fourth day, when Cynthia was beginning to lose hope, she saw him. Arthur was running on the main trail, his athletic body moving with grace. Her heart raced, not from the running, but from the immediate recognition. Without a second thought, Cynthia ran towards him. "Hey!" she shouted, waving frantically. Arthur slowed down, looking around confused until his eyes landed on her. A flash of recognition crossed his face. Cynthia stopped in front of him, panting not just from the physical effort, but from the emotion of the moment. "It's you," she said. "You saved my life." Arthur smiled, a warm smile that lit up his entire face. "You're okay," he replied, evident relief in his voice. "I was worried after that day." The two stood there in the middle of the trail looking at each other. Cynthia didn't know what to say, how to express the depth of her gratitude. Arthur, on the other hand, felt immense joy seeing that she was all right. I would like to thank you properly," Cynthia finally managed to say. "How about a coffee? That is, if you have time now." Arthur nodded, his smile widening. "I'd love to." They walked together to a small cafe near the park. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped them as soon as they entered, creating a cosy atmosphere. They sat at a table near the window, the morning sun bathing them in a soft light. While they waited for their orders, Cynthia couldn't stop looking at Arthur, still amazed by the fact that she had found him. "How did you know what to do?" she asked, curiosity in her voice. Arthur took a sip of his coffee before responding. "My mother is diabetic," he explained, his eyes softening with the memory. "I grew up learning to recognize the signs of hypoglycemia and how to act in emergencies. When I saw you fainted and found the insulin in your bag, I knew exactly what to do." Cynthia felt a wave of emotion wash over her. "You saved my life," she repeated, her voice choked with emotion. "I don't even know how to thank you." Arthur reached across the table, gently touching her hand. "Knowing that you're okay is thanks enough," he said sincerely. From that moment on, it was as if an invisible barrier had been broken. The conversation flowed naturally, moving from thank yous to personal stories. They discovered that they shared much more than just that moment in the park. Arthur talked about his job and the sports he practiced. Cynthia spoke about her career as a lawyer, her daily struggles with diabetes, and how running had become her escape valve. The hours passed unnoticed. The coffee in their cups grew cold as they talked, laughed, and shared experiences. When they finally looked at the clock, they realized they had spent the entire morning there. "I need to go to work," Cynthia said, a hint of disappointment in her voice. Arthur nodded, understanding. "Me too, but can we meet again? Maybe to run together?" Cynthia's face lit up with a radiant smile. "I'd love to." From that day on, Arthur and Cynthia became inseparable. Every morning they met at the park to run together. Arthur, with his knowledge about diabetes, helped Cynthia monitor her glucose levels and maintain a balanced diet. Months passed, and what started as gratitude transformed into a deep friendship and eventually into love. Arthur was patient, understanding, and always there for Cynthia, whether in good times or during health crises. After 3 years of dating, on a particularly beautiful morning in the park where it all began, Arthur proposed to Cynthia. She accepted through tears of happiness, hardly believing that the terrible moment from years ago had transformed into the best thing that had ever happened to her. The wedding was a celebration of life and love. Family and friends gathered to witness the union of two souls who had met under the most improbable circumstances. Married life was everything they had dreamed of and more. They continued with their morning runs, their careers flourished, and the love between them only grew. Arthur was Cynthia's safe harbour, always attentive to her health, reminding her to check her glucose levels and adjusting meals to keep her diabetes under control. However, a few months after the wedding, Cynthia started to notice changes in her body. Initially, they were small things that she attributed to work stress. She felt more tired than usual, sometimes so exhausted that she could hardly get out of bed. Her usual energy, which propelled her to run kilometres every morning, seemed to have vanished. Arthur was the first to notice that something was wrong. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" he asked one morning when Cynthia barely touched the breakfast he had prepared. She forced a smile, not wanting to worry him. "Just tired. Work has been intense lately." But as the weeks went by, the symptoms worsened. Cynthia lost weight rapidly, even without dieting. Her skin, once radiant, became pale and dry. She began to feel frequent nausea and had persistent back pain. It was during a routine checkup that the truth came to light. The tests showed that Cynthia's kidneys were failing, a common complication in long-term diabetes patients. The diagnosis hit the couple like a bombshell. Cynthia felt devastated, guilty for not having noticed the signs earlier. Arthur, on the other hand, immediately went into action mode, researching treatments and options. The doctors recommended immediate dialysis and placed Cynthia on the waiting list for a kidney transplant. The couple's routine changed drastically. Their morning runs were replaced with hospital visits for dialysis sessions. Arthur reorganised his schedule to always be present at Cynthia's treatments. Seeing his wife, once so full of life, connected to dialysis machines broke Arthur's heart. But he remained strong for her, always with an encouraging smile and supportive words. "We will get through this together," he would say, holding her hand during the long hours of treatment. Cynthia's family mobilised. Her parents and siblings underwent tests to see if they were compatible for donation. Arthur, without hesitation, also offered to take the test. When the results came in, it was as if fate had intervened once again. None of Cynthia's family members were compatible, but Arthur was. He was a perfect match. The news, which should have been received with joy, caused conflict. Arthur was determined to donate one of his kidneys to Cynthia, seeing it as another opportunity to save the life of the woman he loved. Cynthia, however, vehemently refused. "I can't accept it," she said through tears. "It's too much. This could change your life forever." Arthur tried to argue, explaining that the surgery was safe, that he could live perfectly well with just one kidney. But Cynthia remained inflexible, fearing that something might go wrong, that she might lose Arthur in the process. Weeks went by and Cynthia's health continued to deteriorate. The dialysis sessions, although necessary, were increasingly exhausting. She lost more weight, grew weaker. Arthur watched helpless as the woman he loved wasted away before his eyes. It was during an emergency hospitalisation that the situation reached its limit. Cynthia had a serious complication, and the doctors were clear. Without an immediate transplant, her chances were minimal. And the news of a donor came in time. Cynthia was taken to the operating room. Hours passed. Cynthia's family waited anxiously in the waiting room. Finally, the doctor appeared with a smile on his face. The surgery had been a success. When Cynthia woke up, still groggy from the anaesthesia, she immediately asked about Arthur. The nurse smiled, assuring her that he would come to see her soon. A few hours later, the room door opened. Arthur finally came in, but not walking. He was on a hospital bed, being pushed by a nurse. Despite looking tired, his face lit up when he saw Cynthia. It was at that moment that reality hit Cynthia. Arthur had been her donor. The tears started to fall down Cynthia's face. You donated your kidney to me. This is the second time you've saved my life. And I will save you every time it's needed, Arthur replied, his voice full of emotion. Cynthia, my love for you has no limits. I would do anything to see you smile, to keep you safe and healthy. You are my life, my heart. Giving you a kidney is just a small proof of how much I love you, and how committed I am to our future together." Cynthia squeezed Arthur's hand, unable to contain her tears. Words seemed insufficient to express what she felt. Arthur's love, his devotion, was something she had never imagined possible. In the days that followed, as they recovered side by side in the hospital, Cynthia and Arthur renewed their commitment to each other. They talked about the future, about the challenges they would still face, but also about the joys that awaited them. The recovery was slow, but together they overcame every obstacle. Runs in the park were replaced by gentle walks, which gradually became longer as they grew stronger. Every small progress was celebrated as a great victory. Months later, fully recovered, Cynthia and Arthur returned to the park where everything had started. Hand in hand, they walked the trail where Cynthia had fainted years before. They stopped at the exact spot where Arthur had found her. "Who would have thought that moment of despair would bring us here?" Cynthia said, looking into Arthur's eyes. He smiled, pulling her close. "You already had my heart, and now you have one of my kidneys too," Arthur said, causing Cynthia to burst into laughter. And every morning when they woke up side by side, they remembered the precious gift they shared, not just a kidney, but an entire life of love, care, and mutual devotion. If you enjoyed, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment with a number from 1 to 5 to let us know how much you liked the story. Also, watch the video that is currently on your screen. See you soon.